My daughter and son chose unfaithful mother after divorce. Now they're begging to come back after my fortune grew. Be me, 53 years old. Need to get something off my chest after keeping it in for 8 years. Using different names to keep anonymous. Was married to my wife Rebecca for 25 years. Me 53, she's 51. Have 2 kids, Lucas 27 and Katie 25. Both moved out and started their own lives. From outside, we looked like perfect family. Reality was completely different though. Before kids, Rebecca worked as operations director at marketing agency. She was really good at her job. When Lucas was born, she decided to be stay-at-home mom. I supported her decision. Working as cybersecurity consultant at major corporation. Thought we could manage on my income. Rebecca would focus on kids. Respected her choice. Believed we were working as team. For a while, everything worked perfectly. Rebecca handled all parenting stuff. School runs, homework help, everything else too. Always made sure to tell her how much I appreciated her. Even when couldn't be there to help. But things started changing as kids got older. Money got tighter. Raising 2 kids on single income wasn't easy. Every unexpected expense became a huge problem. Car repère? School trips, even basic shopping felt like mountain to climb. Started picking up extra hours whenever possible. Working late nights, working weekends. Just trying to keep everything stable. Hated every minute of it. Some days left before kids woke up. Came home after they were asleep. Rebecca kept pointing out how little time I spent with them. She wasn't wrong, but what choice did I have? We needed money to survive. Even though I was trying my best, Rebecca became more and more resentful. Could tell she felt trapped. Gave up her career for family. Now kids were older. Nothing much left for her to focus on. Would make comments about other families, how they seemed to have everything figured out, while we were just getting by. Her words stung deep. Already felt like failure for not providing better life. Her comments only made it worse. Then things started changing in weird ways. Rebecca became obsessed with her appearance. Getting expensive haircuts every month, buying designer clothes we couldn't afford, wearing makeup even when staying home, started going out more frequently, always saying she was meeting old friends or attending some community events. Didn't question it at first, thought maybe she needed time for herself. Wanted to be supportive husband, not the controlling type, but something felt off. She'd come home late at night, wearing expensive perfume I never bought her. Would brush off my questions about where she'd been. Everything hit breaking point one Tuesday evening. She said she had book club meeting at 8 p.m. Who has book club that late? Something wasn't adding up. Did something I never thought I would. Decided to follow her. She left house dressed like going to fancy dinner. Already seemed suspicious. Kept my distance in my car. Followed her across town. She pulled into parking lot of fancy wine bar. Parked far enough away she wouldn't notice. Waited about 10 minutes. Watched her walk inside. Saw her sit with guy I didn't know. He looked mid-40s. Bit younger than us. They were laughing. Acting like only people in world. Told myself could be innocent. Maybe old friend. Maybe from her volunteer work. Then they got up. Walked out holding hands. Got into his Mercedes. Followed them to Marriott Hotel downtown. They didn't even try to hide it. Walked right in together. Sat in car for what felt like eternity. Trying to process what just saw. Part of me wanted to storm in. Confront them both. Other part knew it was pointless. Had seen enough. Drove home in complete silence. Packed overnight bag. Left note on kitchen counter. I know what you're doing, don't bother lying. Went to crash at my friend's place for night. Next morning called divorce lawyer first thing. When confronted Rebecca, she didn't even try to deny anything. Just sat there calm as ever. Like she'd been expecting this conversation all along. When told her what I saw, the wine bar, the hotel, she just nodded slowly. Said, well, I guess there's no point in lying, is there? She admitted everything without hesitation. Had been seeing guy named Thomas for almost a year. Wasn't just some random affair. Thomas was loaded. Owned chain of luxury car dealerships across state. Had massive estate in rich part of town. According to her, he understood her in ways I never could. Her exact words. Didn't even try to sugarcoat anything. No tears. No begging for forgiveness. Nothing at all. Like she'd been waiting for me to figure it out so she could finally move on with her life. Started listing off reasons like reading business report. Said she was lonely. Said we'd drifted apart. Said she missed feeling wanted. Then hit me with worst part. You've been so focused on work for years. I didn't think you even noticed me anymore. Like that somehow made her sneaking around okay. Just stood there. Let her talk, but inside was absolutely furious. She'd traded 25 years of marriage. For someone with bigger bank account. Wasn't even pretending to feel bad about it. Only time she hesitated was when said filing for divorce. You're sure about that? She asked. Tilted her head like surprised I'd actually follow through. I'm done, told her. You made your choice, now I'm making mine. She didn't argue. Just said, all right, I guess this is for the best. So cold, so calculated, like this was just another step in her master plan. Filing for divorce ended up being easier than expected. Think had been mentally checked out of marriage for a while, once had solid reason to leave. Didn't hesitate for a second. Hardest part wasn't leaving Rebecca, it was knowing how to tell Lucas and Katie. They were adults, but this wasn't some small thing could hide. Knew it would hit them hard. What didn't expect was how little support would get. From two people thought would have my back, decided to tell kids separately. Started with Lucas. Thought he'd be more level-headed one. Met at old school diner near his place. Kind that serves greasy burgers. Coffee tastes like engine oil. Found him sitting there, scrolling through his phone when walked in. Sat down across from him. Made some small talk first, then just ripped the band-aid off. "I'm divorcing your mom," I said. Lucas's face went completely blank. Put his phone down slowly. "Why?" he asked. Told him straight up, "She's been having an affair." Kept my voice steady. Didn't want to sound like fishing for sympathy. "I saw her with the guy. She admitted everything when confronted her." Thought Lucas would understand. I mean, cheating is cheating, right? Instead, he leaned back in booth, let out this long, dramatic sigh, like just told him favorite sports team lost game. "Dad, come on," he said. "Are you sure you're not blowing this out of proportion? Maybe you two just need counseling or something." Blowing it out of proportion! Had to repeat it. "She's been seeing this guy for almost a year. It's not a misunderstanding." "It's over." Lucas didn't look convinced at all. "Yeah, but mom's been a stay-at-home mom for years. Don't you think maybe she felt stuck? Lonely? You've been working a lot and maybe she just needed..." "She needed to cheat on me?" Cut him off. "If she felt stuck or lonely, she could have talked to me. She didn't. She chose to sneak around instead." Lucas just shrugged, like it wasn't even big deal. "I'm just saying maybe you shouldn't rush into divorce. You've been married for 25 years. That's worth something, isn't it?" Couldn't believe what was hearing. Sat there completely stunned, while Lucas went on and on about how divorce would complicate things, how needed to think about what it would do to family. Not once did he say Rebecca was wrong. Not once did he say he understood where I was coming from. By time left diner, was crystal clear. Lucas wasn't on my side. Thought Katie might be different, but boy was I wrong about that too. Met Katie at park near her apartment. Walked her through everything that happened. She didn't even blink. Okay, she said when finished explaining. "So what are you going to do?" "I've already filed for divorce," told her. She crossed her arms, frowned like disappointed teacher. "Isn't that a little drastic? I mean, mom made a mistake, sure. But are you seriously just giving up on your marriage?" "She didn't make a mistake, Katie," said to her. Tried not to sound as frustrated as felt. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, or saying something hurtful in a fight. This is something else entirely. Katie shook her head at me, like I was a stupid child who didn't understand. "You don't get it. Mom gave up everything for us. Her career, her independence. She put it all on hold to raise me and Lucas. While you worked. Don't you think maybe that took a toll on her?" "Maybe she just needed to cheat on me?" interrupted her. "Why does everyone keep acting like this is my fault?" "Nobody's saying it's your fault," Katie shot back. "I'm just saying it's not black and white. People aren't perfect, Dad. Mom made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should throw away 25 years of marriage." Was like talking to brick wall. No matter what said, Katie kept going back to same thing. How much Rebecca sacrificed for family. How I needed to think about bigger picture. When told her divorce wasn't up for debate, she got super defensive. "Well, if you're set on this, don't expect me to take sides," she declared. "I'm not asking you to take sides," told her. Though was starting to realize that's exactly what she'd already done. By end of conversation was completely exhausted. Lucas and Katie weren't just unsupportive. They were outright dismissive of everything I'd been through. Felt like they were more concerned about Rebecca's feelings than mine. Like her betrayal was somehow justified because she'd been lonely or sacrificed too much. And worst part was, Rebecca didn't even care. Over next few weeks, things got even worse. Lucas and Katie started pulling away. They'd always been good about keeping in touch, calling or texting regularly, now lucky to hear from them once a month. When tried to check in, conversations were short, awkward. Could tell they were spending more time with Rebecca and Thomas. Would see pictures on social media, family dinners, birthday parties, holiday celebrations. Wasn't in any of them. They didn't completely cut me off, but message was clear. Wasn't part of their inner circle anymore. Final blow hit few months after divorce finalized. Katie called out of nowhere. Wanted to share some news. She'd gotten engaged. For brief moment felt like part of her life again. My little girl was getting married. She actually thought to call and tell me, congratulated her, voice cracking little bit, told her how happy was for her, asked about wedding plans. There was pause online. In that split second, knew something was wrong. Well, Mom and Thomas will be there, she said quietly, like that explained everything, frowned in confusion. So it'd be awkward if you came. Her voice barely above whisper, froze completely. Awkward? Awkward for who? Wanted to scream. My daughter telling me point blank. Wasn't welcome at her own wedding, because might ruffle Rebecca and Thomas's feathers. Guy my wife cheated with, one who wrecked our family, had spot at wedding, would be walking her down aisle. But her own father wasn't even invited. You're serious? Asked. Throat feeling tight. It's just, you know how things are, she said, sounding uncomfortable. But not sorry at all. It'll be easier this way. Easier for who? Definitely not for me. Sat there gripping phone, trying to hold it together. All right, said finally. Because what else could say? That was it. Wasn't invited to own daughter's wedding. Sat there holding phone. Chest felt heavy, like someone punched hole through it. Left nothing but empty space. Just when thought couldn't hurt more, Lucas followed suit few months later. His excuse almost identical. Mom and Thomas will be there. You won't be comfortable if you come. Hearing it from him was like knife twisting in chest. Lucas had always been one thought could reason with, one who'd eventually understand. But no, he'd made his choice too. At that moment realized, hadn't just lost my wife, lost my kids too. Rebecca hadn't just cheated, moved on with rich guy. She'd managed to pull Lucas and Katie into her corner. Shut me out completely. Felt like she'd won, like she'd taken everything from me, left me standing in wreckage of life spent decades building. But couldn't just let it go. Kept trying. Would send Lucas and Katie texts, leave voicemails. Just checking in. Hope you're doing well. Sometimes they'd reply. Short, polite messages. 1 or 2 words at most. More often than not, messages went unanswered. There was this one night, about 9 months after divorce. Was feeling especially lonely. House was too quiet. Hadn't spoken to anyone in days, except people at work. On impulse, decided to call Lucas. When he picked up, could hear TV playing in background. Hey, Lucas, said. Tried to sound upbeat. Was just thinking, why don't you and your fiancé come over for dinner? One night this week. Been a while. Would love to catch up. There was a long pause on his end. Then he sighed. I'd like to, Dad, but we're super busy right now. Wedding planning, you know. Maybe some other time. Swallowed lump in throat. Forced smile he couldn't see. Sure, I get it. Another time. Yeah, for sure, he said. I'll call you when things settle down. He didn't call. That was moment it fully sank in. Wasn't priority in their lives anymore. Just obligation they'd occasionally remember. When was convenient. Hope in holding on to started fading. Little by little. Tried convincing myself it was better this way. That staying in marriage where wasn't respected would have been worse. But always this gnawing voice in back of head, wondering if made wrong choice. Should have fought harder. Should have swallowed pride. Stuck it out for sake of family. Never got answer. Life just moved on without me. Spent next 8 years keeping head down. Throwing myself into work honestly wasn't because loved my job. Was more about survival. Was 53 years old. Starting over. Needed something to keep me going. Work was all had. Job wasn't thrilling, but paid bills. Kept me busy. Most days would bury myself in work. Fixing network issues. Helping coworkers with tech problems. Kind of work that didn't require much emotional investment, which was exactly what needed at time. Then Oliver came along. He was one of those guys, always thinking 10 steps ahead, type of coworker who'd pitch ideas. During coffee breaks, like he was on Dragon's Den, one day pulled me aside. Ever think about doing your own thing? Starting something from scratch? At first laughed it off. Oliver, I'm not exactly risk taker, told him. But he kept pushing idea. His plan was launch tech consulting firm, specializing in cybersecurity. Said there was growing demand. We could make name for ourselves. If played it right, more he talked, more it made sense. Had technical experience. He had business sense. After weeks of late-night conversations over greasy Chinese takeout, finally agreed to give it shot. What have I got to lose? Told him. First couple years were absolute hell. Worked insane hours, juggling day jobs while building business. Some nights fell asleep at desk. Hit roadblocks constantly. Clients backing out last minute. Budget problems. More stress than ever dealt with before. But kept pushing forward. Didn't give up. Slowly, things started clicking together. Landed few big contracts. Built solid reputation. Started delivering real results. Eventually, business really took off. By time hit 58, was doing better than ever had before. Wasn't super rich, but was comfortable. First time in life. Moved out of depressing apartment into modest but cozy house. Had nice yard and everything. Even managed to build some savings. Something never thought would have. After divorce wiped me out. For first time in years. Felt like was in control of life. Wasn't just surviving anymore. Was actually thriving. Kept to myself mostly. Focused on work. Kept personal life simple. Started dating again. Then met Diana. She was widow. Lost husband in car accident 2 years ago. We clicked right away. She was amazing. After 1 year, got married. Had beautiful baby girl. Named her Amy. Life became quiet. Really liked it that way. Then out of nowhere, Lucas and Katie showed up at my door. Was Saturday afternoon. In middle of mowing lawn, when saw their car pull into driveway. First thought was seeing things. Hadn't seen either of them in years. Now here they were, stepping out of car. Like nothing had happened. Killed mower. Walked over. Not sure what to expect. Dad, Katie said. Smiling like we'd just spoken yesterday. Lucas right behind her, holding toddler. Assumed was his kid. For a moment felt flicker of hope. Maybe they were here to reconnect. Finally mend gap between us. It's been too long, Katie said. Giving me quick hug? Yeah, it has, replied. Still trying process what was happening. We stood there in awkward silence for a few seconds before Lucas cleared his throat. Mind if we come in? Of course, said stepping aside. They walked in like owned place. Started commenting on house. How nice it was. How much I'd really come up in world. Didn't pick up on vibe then? Too caught up in moment. We sat in living room. Couldn't help but notice how overly friendly they were being. Lucas asked about work. Katie complimented house. Both kept throwing in comments about how much they'd missed me. Then after about 20 minutes of small talk, real reason they were here came out. Dad, Lucas started. Leaning forward in chair. We need to ask you something. Sure, said. Still completely oblivious. He glanced at Katie. She gave him quick nod. Then he just said it. We could really use your help financially. Just stared at them, waiting for some explanation. Katie jumped in quickly. It's not for us exactly. It's for the kids. We've had some tough times lately. Turns out Thomas's car dealership business had taken nosedive. Both Lucas and Katie had been working for him. Now money was drying up. They were struggling make ends meet. So what are you asking? Said. Tone sharper than intended. Well, Katie said, we thought maybe you could help us out little. You know, just until we get back on our feet. That flicker of hope felt earlier. Completely gone now. They didn't come to reconnect. Didn't come because missed me or wanted make things right. They came because heard was doing well. Now wanted piece of it. I'll think about it, said. Keeping face neutral. They left soon after, thanking me like already agreed. To bail them out. Second they were gone. Sat down and blocked their numbers. 8 years of silence. And this is why they came back. It wasn't about family. Wasn't about healing old wounds. Was about money. Thought that was end of it. But was wrong. They weren't done yet. Week later, they showed up at my office. Unannounced. Completely uninvited. Was in middle of meeting with client. When assistant knocked on door. There are 2 people in lobby. Say they need to see you. They didn't have appointment. Tell them leave their names. I'll get back to them, said annoyed. She hesitated. They're saying they're your kids. Stomach dropped. Of course was Lucas and Katie. Told her ask them wait. Figuring deal with them after meeting. But apparently patience wasn't their thing. Not 5 minutes later. Heard voices down hall. They'd pushed past assistant. Walked straight into conference room. Dragging their kids with them. Dad, we need to talk, Lucas said. Completely ignoring fact. Was sitting at table with 2 clients. And business partner. Stood up trying to keep composure. I'm in middle of something, said. This can't wait, Katie said. Planting herself at head of table, like she owned place, glanced at Oliver, who looked completely confused, then turned back to them. Fine, wait in my office. I'll be there when I'm done. Lucas opened mouth to argue, but Katie grabbed his arm, dragged him out, muttering something under breath. Apologized to clients. Wrapped up meeting fast as possible. Headed to office, already dreading what was waiting. When walked in, Lucas was pacing room, while Katie sat on couch, bouncing fussy toddler on lap. Neither looked happy. You've got some nerve, Lucas said. As soon as daughter closed, raised eyebrow at him. Excuse me? Blocking us, ignoring our calls. He snapped. We're your family, Dad. You don't just shut us out like that. Leaned against desk, crossing arms. Funny, that's exactly what you did to me. For years. Or did you forget about that? Katie sighed, clearly trying play mediator. Look, we get it okay? We screwed up, But we're trying to fix things. That's why we came here today. No, you're here because I wouldn't hand over money, said. It's not about the money, Lucas said. Voice rising. It's about the kids. They deserve to know their grandfather. Glanced at toddler squirming on Katie's lap. Didn't even know his name. They'd kept me out of their lives for years. Now suddenly supposed to play doting grandpa. I've never even met them until today, said. Keeping voice steady. You've spent years shutting me out. And now you're dragging them here? To guilt me into helping you. That's low even for you. Lucas's face turned red. Unbelievable. Do you even hear yourself? You're punishing us for making a mistake. And only people you're hurting are those kids. You mean kids you didn't let me meet? For 8 years? Shot back. Toddler started crying, probably sensing tension. Katie immediately jumped up to soothe him. Can we all just calm down? She said. Voice strained. But Lucas wasn't calming down. Was getting angrier by second. You're acting like bitter old man, he spat. Do you even care about anyone but yourself? That was it. Had enough. Stood up straight. Pointed to door. Get out now. Lucas looked ready to argue more, but Katie grabbed his arm again. Let's go, she said through gritted teeth. Face pale. They left, but not before Lucas turned back. Hissed at me. You're going to regret this? When you're old and alone. Don't come crying to us. Door slammed behind them. Just stood there, shaking with anger. Been holding on to small hope. That maybe deep down, they still cared about me. But now realized truth. They didn't care about fixing relationship. They cared about what I could do for them. Spent rest of day trying focus on work. Mind kept replaying scene in office. The audacity of them. Barging in like that, acting like I owed them something, was almost laughable. Few days later, they took it step further. This time was email. Subject line read, let's start fresh. Opened it more out of curiosity than anything else. Was long, overly wordy apology. They admitted they'd messed up. Said they regretted shutting me out. Claimed they wanted to make things right. But buried halfway through email was real reason they were reaching out. We've been working on new business idea. Would mean world to us if you could invest. We're not asking for handout. Just little help to get started. Didn't even finish reading. Slammed laptop shut. Stared at wall. Try and keep temper in check. They hadn't changed. Didn't care about reconnecting. Didn't care about me. All they wanted was my money. Didn't respond this time. Didn't even bother pretending to think about it. Was done. Made decision to cut them off completely. After their constant demands and manipulations. Was clear Lucas and Katie weren't interested in fixing anything. They just wanted what I could give them. Blocked their numbers. Removed them from every social media account. Even changed email address. Wasn't going to leave any door open for them to use me again. At first felt twinge of guilt. Cutting off own kids felt drastic, but wasn't like they'd left me much choice. For 8 years they had no problem keeping me out of their lives. Now they could stay out of mine. Wasn't easy. There were moments where questioned myself. What kind of father cuts off his kids? But every time thought about letting them back. Remembered how they treated me. Not just recently, but for years. The silent birthdays. Weddings wasn't invited to. Way they only came around when needed something. They didn't want father. They wanted resource. So moved forward. Threw myself into work. Took up new hobbies. Even started traveling little. Made peace with fact that my family wasn't coming back. Was freeing in way to stop waiting for something that was never going to happen. Then out of nowhere, Rebecca showed up. Was Saturday morning. Just finishing coffee. When heard knock at door. When opened it, there she was. My ex-wife standing on porch. Looking nothing like confident woman she'd been when left me for Thomas. She looked old. Tired. Worn down. Her clothes were faded. There was desperation in her eyes. Hadn't seen before, Rebecca said flatly. What do you want? She hesitated for a moment. Can I come in? No, said crossing arms. Say what you need to say. She swallowed hard. Glanced at ground nervously. Thomas is gone, she said quietly. His business went under. And he left. Left as in he just took off. She nodded. Tears starting to form in eyes. He drained everything we had and disappeared. I have nothing. No one to turn to. I didn't know where else to go. Leaned against doorframe, trying to process what she was saying. What exactly are you hoping to get from me? I don't know, she admitted, voice cracking. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was selfish and stupid. And I see that now. I threw away best thing I ever had. For someone who didn't care about me, her words hung in air. But they didn't hit me. way they might have years ago. Didn't feel angry or vindicated, just felt nothing. I appreciate the apology, said finally. But it doesn't change anything. You made your choice, Rebecca. You walked away. Now you're dealing with consequences. That's not my problem anymore. Tears streamed down her face, but didn't waver. Spent too many years. Letting people walk all over me. Wasn't about to let her back in. Just because she was desperate? I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. Voice barely above whisper. I needed to tell you. Needed you to know how sorry I am. Nodded once. Stepping back into house? I hope you figure things out, Rebecca. But this is where we leave it. And with that closed door, after she left, sat down in quiet house. Feeling strange mix of emotions. Wasn't satisfaction or triumph. Was closure. For first time felt like could finally let go of everything. The marriage, the betrayal, the pain, was all behind me now. Spent last few months focusing on myself. On my wife Diana, on my little Amy, on my work, on my hobbies, on my peace. Don't look back anymore. Cutting ties with Lucas and Katie wasn't easy, but was right choice for me. As for Rebecca, her apology didn't change past, but gave me final push needed to move forward. Made peace with fact that my life doesn't look way I thought it would, but it's mine and finally at place where that's enough.